If you're talking about it, we're talking about it. Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back with me, Lembit Opik, here at today's News Talk TNT. And now we enter the court of common sense, where we pass judgment on the barrage of nonsense that we're subjected to on a daily basis, as much as we can spot it. And who better to cast his forensic eye over this than Jim Ferguson? Greetings, Jim. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Lembit. It's an honor to be on with you. Nice to see you.
And right to back at you, and likewise. And let's start with this one. Labour's plans to stop the, what I think they call dehumanizing process of gender change. As I understand it, Jim, they're saying they want to make it easier and want to essentially veto the right of, for example, a parent or guardian to intervene. What's all this about?
Well, I think it's all about control, Lembit. I think this is another symptom, unfortunately, of the globalists' mentality, where they want to take the rights of parents away from them. They actually want to have your children. They want to have our children, and they want to be the ones that control and dictate the narrative. So what we're witnessing here is actually very, very alarming, very concerning, especially when we see what is probably looking like an electoral wipeout for the Conservative Party here in the United Kingdom. It could see Keir Starmer and his globalist chums being put into positions of great power. And I don't think the country realizes the dangers of that happening, but they will probably find out in due course.
Yeah, one of the sources, I'm told, actually said that the party, that's the Labour Party, wanted to, and I want to get this right, wanted to make the process of this gender change less medicalised. How can it be less medicalised? And how can it be okay to exclude parents or guardians when at the age of puberty, many young people's hormones are screaming at them, and they got all these mixed messages, and they got the Eurovision Song Contest confusing them even more?
Well, you know, when you put people like Bambi Thug on there, who was the Irish entry, I mean, I think it just goes to show the state of affairs and just how fallen we are becoming. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the fact that they want to be less medicalized, I think really shows what they actually want more of is more trans ideology. And you keep on filling young minds with that sort of trash and utter nonsense. And we're going to see, regardless of politics, Lembit, you know, regardless of all of that, this is really dangerous. And to be honest with you, there's a very dark side to all of this. And young people growing up have enough pressures with hormonal imbalances and all sorts of issues to contend with. And I have to say, you know, the modern era with all the technology, everybody's got a mobile phone, everybody's plugged in, they're being bombarded. And sometimes it would be just nice to let the children be children again.
Absolutely agree. But it doesn't stop there. In Scotland, in another act of exactly the same thing, I think 13 Greens have been thrown out of the Green Party for saying that sex is a biological reality. Apparently, that's enough to be thrown out of the Green Party. Why? What's happening?
Well, you know, my first contact with the Greens was when I was standing as a Brexit Party parliamentary candidate. And of course, I ended up doing all the hustings and the shows on the BBC and on STV and all these other places. I ended up sitting in a studio audience right next to Lorna Slater from the Green Party. She is probably one of the most extreme zealots you will ever come across. And if you do anything or say anything, the eyes go wide. She's almost about to lose it. Look, the Green Party are less focused about what I would call true green issues, nature, preserving our countryside, looking after our animals and the species of this planet. They're more focused on trans ideology. And these sort of extreme policies, look, the Green Party are extremists. But the dangerous thing, Lembit, is this. When you start to try to control and dictate the narrative in this way, well, there's a word for that. It's called fascism. And the Greens, in my opinion, are fascists.
The fact that they've done this in some strange, slightly icky way is confusing, because they keep talking about nature. They want to control climate, by the way, which in my view changes naturally. They want to control climate. But now they're trying to intervene in gender as well. And if I was asking the leader of the Greens in Scotland one question, it would be, why are you throwing people out who arguably are taking a nature-based view of gender. Whether you like it or not, leader of the Greens, that would be a legitimate place to start in the Green Party, but apparently not.
You know, Lembit, this is the first time I've been on with you. I'm amazed at your sensible wisdom and all the things. And I know that you come from a political ideology that's maybe a little bit different to mine, but actually I see an awful lot of common sense here, and it's great to see that. Look, as I say, you don't start pushing people out just because they don't agree with you, but that is typical of the Greens. And in a healthy democracy, you can't just silence people because they have a different opinion to you or a different view of things to you. And when you see that happening, that's fascism. And anybody that votes for the Greens, I'm telling you now, they're making a massive mistake. And we've seen in Scotland in particular, real misgovernance by the Scottish National Party, but a lot of that clown-like behaviour was coming from the likes of Patrick Garvey and Lorna Slater, who are maniacs. They are extremists like you wouldn't believe. There's no place in a healthy democracy for fascism, in my opinion.
Well, to continue the bromance, I'm an intense libertarian, and I believe you to be as well. So, to quote Humphrey Bogart, this could be the beginning of a beautiful relationship. We'll see what happens there. And I don't mean between me and the Scottish Greens. That's not going to happen. Another broken relationship is between trusting clients of the NHS and the blood scandal, which has now killed thousands and infected tens of thousands more. It's almost unavoidable that you trust the NHS. And I have to tell you, I've had great service by and large from them. I draw the line at the vaccinations, but that was a political decision rather than an NHS one. What's your take on the blood scandal and the extent to which whistleblowers get punished? We were talking about this here at today's News Talk TNT in the previous hour.
Well, I mean, it's crucial that whistleblowers under the Whistleblower Charter are absolutely protected, because they're blowing the whistle on perhaps criminal type of activity that might be taking place by people within establishments like the NHS or the government or many, many other institutions, Lembit. And I think once again, we are going to see this dragging on, a little bit like the post office scandal. I mean, these poor people, some of whom were accused of the worst crimes and went to, charged in prison. I mean, absolutely dreadful. But when it comes to our health, we should be able to trust our medical establishment. And when you get this type of thing happening, people's confidence in that will slide to a rock bottom position. And really, at the end of the day, when we're talking about the health of the nation, there can be no compromises. Absolutely not when it comes to people's medical health.
Yes, and we'll be talking to one of the victims shortly. The cover-up part worries me, and Gemma Cooper herself here at today's News Talk pointed out that we could be having exactly the same kind of conversation on an even grander scale about the vaccination program, which we were pretty close to forced to be involved in from COVID. Will we ever learn the lessons of history?
Well, I hope so. I mean, Lembit, my opinion is there needs to be a new Nuremberg-type trial for some of these people that were involved in Big Pharma. If you know anything, I mean, you and I obviously have similar views on that as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're witnessing and the entire cover-up by the medical establishment, Big Pharma, and our own politicians in our respective countries around the world sends alarm bells ringing, because they don't want to talk about excess deaths. They're not willing to talk about vaccine injuries, and we're seeing it going off the charts. There has to be accountability. People must be held to account. And people like Richie Sunak, who invested $500 million into Moderna through a shell company in the Cayman Islands that he helped to set up, really just goes to show the levels of corruption. That took place in 2017, long before there was a pandemic, and the Moderna never had any successful products to market way back then. What did he know, Lembit? Did he know something that none of the rest of us knew? I suspect he might have done.
He knew one thing. He knew how to get rich. That's one lesson I'd like to learn from him, to be honest with you. Jim Ferguson, thanks very much for being the judge at the Court of Common Sense. Have your views as well. Go to tntradio.live if I've got time.